Okay, what up ladies and gents, it's your favorite Asian robot right here, hopefully your favorite official content creator for the First Descendant, and today, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna go through the Inversion Reinforcer with you guys, because many of you guys have asked me for guidance on it, stuff like that, because some people have been referencing my old guides. Okay, I'm gonna do the one for Season 2 today, and I do apologize for not having put out the VS bossing video and all that, because I actually want to do some tests tomorrow. I know I've been very busy with my gaming group playing Marvel Rivals this weekend, but TFD will be resuming again on Monday, and that's when I'll also drop the rest of the builds for like taking on Infernal Walker, all that other kind of stuff. But for today, enjoy this, enjoy the Inversion Reinforcer video. There we go. That was a mouthful, wasn't it? Okay, let's get started, shall we? Now, the Inversion Reinforcer, to give you guys a bit of background, is a seasonal power-up that is intended to change season to season. All right, most of the trees are similar to what we had in Season 1, but there were some changes made in Season 2, and you can actually check these out in the patch notes videos that will talk about, what changes happened, stuff like that. I put these out regularly. The seasonal powers, though, definitely do change every season, so be aware of that, okay? Because it's usually tagged to the seasonal weapon, etc., so on and so forth. Now, let's get started with this. I'm going to go through everything one by one, okay? And then we're going to talk about the benefits, what I pick, what are the good picks, all that kind of stuff. So, without further ado, let's begin. The first tree that you're going to talk about, and by the way, in case anyone doesn't know this, what you need to do with the Inversion Reinforcer is that after you claim all the perks in a tree, you will get the passive that will trigger regardless of whether or not you have something in that particular tree. However, some passives, for example, the first one, Enhanced Pain Suppression, only works when an augmentation, meaning one of these, is active, all right? Whereas this last one, Quantum Domain, works whether or not you have anything in season. So although the passives are always active, as you can see here, they do not always trigger because some of them have conditions for triggering, okay? All right, let's go tree by tree first. Let's start with the Hunt tree. So for the Hunt tree, what this does is that it gives you a different kind of augmentation. Biodensity increases your max HP up to 5 stacks, so this gives you about 55.7% extra max HP. This is a increase of your base maximum hit points, i.e. whatever you have from your external components and whatever your Descendant has at level 40. Okay, so for the first one, what you have to understand is that the additional HP that you're getting is after whatever you've increased, it's before whatever you've increased with modules. It's not going to be another 55% on top of whatever you've already increased with modules, so be aware of that. All the rest function the same, okay? The second one is the shield particle augmentation. This gives you max shield, okay, up to 5 stacks, 8.1% per stack for 30 seconds, whenever you defeat an enemy. And the thing is that this will also be an increase of your base shields, okay, before modules are taken into account. Next is the Neuro Concentration Reinforcement. This one will actually increase your MP, your max MP, and your MP recovery, okay, by 1.5%, max of 5 stacks for 30 seconds, all right, whenever you defeat an enemy, okay? This one, once again, same rule, is an increase based on your base MP. But the MP recovery modifier functions similar to what you see in your external components, all that stuff. Basically, it just makes your MP recovery better whenever you pick up orbs, all that kind of stuff. For the inversion particle augmentation, okay, this one increases your defense by 8.6% up to 5 stacks for 30 seconds whenever you defeat an enemy. All right. Again, this is an increase of your base defense, so it is before modules are taken into account. Last but not least, your passive for this tree is Enhanced Pain Suppression. This is whenever any of these augments, okay, any of them are active, you will gain a incoming damage modifier of minus 4.1%. Now, do I use anything in this tree? In general, no. Although initially at the start of the season, I do like the biodensity augmentation. This actually doesn't help you much in Colossus fights unless you take out the minions. And in a lot of circumstances, if you're using somebody like Haley, you're trying to finish the fight fast, you're not exactly taking out minions, or in some cases you skip the minions entirely. This does not benefit your character, therefore I do not use it. If you like it, then by all means go ahead and use it, but I do not use it because I do not find it worthwhile. Okay. For the second tree attribute, what this will do is that when you hit an enemy with a firearm, it will grant you a particular element of rounds. So this one is fire, chill, toxic, electric. Okay. You will gain a elemental attack equal to 4.8% of your firearm attack up to 5 stacks. This is an extra 20% multiplicative damage of the element that you like. So make sure you're choosing an element that the enemy is weak to. All right, if you're choosing the correct element that the enemy is weak to, you can actually boost your damage up by more than 20%. Okay, and this is an additional damage that you're dealing. Now, the passive for this, and of course, please, you guys are familiar with elemental weaknesses and stuff, right? If you're not, then you better check out that YouTube short. But basically, you should know which elements counter which elements. Just pick the one before you go into combat. Pick the one that's going to defeat the enemy, and you're good to go. All right. Now, the passive is really good. As long as you are stacking this, okay, which in this particular season, you always pick one of these elements. As long as you're stacking that element, once you gain maximum stacks, that means 5 shots. Okay, remember it takes 5 shots because it's on hitting an enemy. This is best with rapid fire weapons, FYI. But once you hit an enemy 5 times, okay, what will happen is that particular enemy will receive all attribute resistance minus 4% up to 5 stacks. This means that you can actually give all enemies a minus 20% resistance to whatever element. It does not matter which element, okay? But this only triggers after you finish maxing out these stacks, okay? Take note, when at max focus round stacks, it will grant you enhanced focus rounds, okay? Enhanced focus rounds inflict the bypass immunity. So you need 5 bullets to stack up this, and then another 5 bullets to bypass the immunity. So again, this mostly benefits rapid fire weapons. 10 bullets is how many you're gonna need to fire in order to get the best value out of this, okay? Then you've got the recovery tree. I like this tree, okay? Recovery tree is all about different types of recovery. The first one is selective cellular stimulation. This one will grant you one of the 3 effects every 30 seconds. Every 30 seconds, you've got a percentage chance of granting you any of these effects. The first effect is to restore 19.2% of your maximum hit points. This is excellent for Keelan, FYI, because it triggers every 30 seconds. Maximize regeneration restores 33.6% of its maximum hit points, and restore vital cells restores 43.2% of maximum hit points and MP by 2% of max MP. Okay, the effect that you get is random. The chances of the first effect 60%, second effect 30%, third effect 10%. All right, but you're always going to gain one of these effects. So the minimum recovery you're going to get every 30 seconds is 19.2% of maximum hit points. Pretty useful, really. Selective neurostimulation. This one is the same, but for MP. But it triggers only every 45 seconds instead of every 30 seconds, okay? And the chances are the same. The first one recovers 12.4%, second one recovers 21.7%, the last one recovers 27.9% of max MP and gives you a 7.2% max HP recovery. If you need a lot of MP, this is pretty good for sustaining you throughout the match, but it will not sustain you immediately, okay? Because it's every 45 seconds. Now, for the shield builds that we used to use, for example, and Enzo still operates on this, please make sure you use this particular one. Recovery maneuver is very important. Whenever you use your grappling hook, it will restore your shield by 3% of your maximum shield every 0.1 seconds while you're using the grappling hook. This goes up to 30%. So this can restore up to 30% of your shields, all right, and is on a cooldown of 25 seconds. It's actually pretty useful. So be sure to utilize this if you are using a shield-based build, all right? Last but not least is heightened sensory cells. This is the one that I use in general for farming. Why? It has a cooldown of 25 seconds, okay? And as long as an enemy is nearby, it'll grant you heightened sensory cells every 0.5 seconds. Heightened sensory cells will last for 10 seconds, okay? And you only need 4 stacks. So all you need is to stay next to an enemy for 2 seconds, and you will actually trigger this effect. What this effect does is that it will recover your HP by 20% and your MP by 8.5%, okay? And this has the fastest cooldown out of all the effects, and because it recovers both HP and MP, this is most useful for farming builds. So if you are farming, other than like Keelan, Glay, who don't use MP, or Kyle, who doesn't use MP, please use the heightened sensory cells. Otherwise, take advantage of selective cellular stimulation or recovery maneuver. Keelan uses this one. Several others may use recovery maneuver. So I suggest that you adjust this based on the type of character that you're playing, because even if you're playing a character with no MP, this is kind of a bit of a waste. You could get more out of it. You get what I mean? Okay, so this is it for the recovery tree. The passive is that whenever you land a firearm critical hit, you've got a 27% chance to grant hyperdimensional vision to yourself. Hyperdimensional vision removes debuffs for 3 seconds and grants debuff immunity for those 3 seconds. It's on a 1-minute cooldown. This thing will save your butt because it's always active. All you gotta do is crit with a firearm, so make sure the firearm you're using has some crits. Being able to remove debuffs from yourself is pretty darn awesome. So I do like this particular passive, and it's always on. It always works, as long as you're firing a gun that has the potential to crit. Okay, so this is it. Next is the survival tree. For the survival tree, okay, here's what you've got. Void resistance. When your hit points are 50% or lower in an intercept battle, you are going to gain 16.5% incoming damage reduction for 15 seconds. The cooldown on this is 35 seconds. Do I ever use this? No. However, if you would like to, this can have some help. This can give you some assistance with Infernal Walker. Prevents him from doing a full burst. Okay? Second, antibody explosion. Whenever you successfully hit an enemy, all right, and this one's pretty cool because it lasts 30 seconds, but the cooldown is 20 seconds, you will gain the antibody explosion effect. This gives you attribute resistance of 2050 for 30 seconds, okay? Very good for low-level fights, but it can also provide some help in high-level fights because you're gaining all attribute resistance, okay? So I like to keep this on in general because it's pretty useful, and it triggers whenever you successfully hit an enemy. This means whether it's skill or firearm, as long as you're hitting an enemy, you have this, okay? Next is Vitality Burst. When you defeat an enemy, you gain the Vitality Burst effect. This increases your HP recovery rate and your shield recovery modifier by a small percentage for up to 30 seconds, but there's no cooldown on this, okay? So it's a pretty interesting one. I don't really use it. It could be useful on shield-based builds, especially if you don't need the antibody explosion. But if you don't need to play a shield-based build, then you can just ignore this. Okay, Abyss Enhancement. This one can be pretty useful in conjunction with shield-based builds, and it's actually better than Vitality Burst, to be fair. Why? When you defeat an enemy, it applies the Abyss Enhancement effect. The Abyss Enhancement effect reduces incoming damage by 0.5% and grappling cooldowns by 6% up to 5 stacks, which means you can reduce the cooldown up to 30%, okay, and it lasts 30 seconds. So it can be kind of useful in Colossus fights as long as you're killing the minions. But because there's a requirement of killing the minions, this is also a bit of a hit and miss. I only use it if I don't have anything better to utilize. And actually, I should probably remove my green screen because as we're getting close to the bottom. Sorry, I only use this if I've got nothing else to utilize, so I just pretty much rarely ever use this because the only time I use a shield build is for the Deathstalker fight. Okay, the passive for this one is called Enhanced Arcade Potential. Whenever you obtain a HP and MP recovery orb, you gain all attribute resistance up to 10 stacks, 123 attribute resistance per stack, which means that you can get 1,230 at maximum. This can pair together with antibody explosion. So realistically, for most fights, you can actually just have these on and gain some resistance benefits, all right? This can help you survive a little bit, but this passive is contingent on picking up HP and MP recovery orbs. Again, I love this for farming, but you can select other stuff if you want it for other activities, okay? Last but not least is the seasonal tree, okay? This one is purely for this season. Now, the first one is called Adrenaline Rush. When you defeat an enemy, you gain Adrenaline Rush. All movement speed is boosted by 16% for 10 seconds, cooldown of 20 seconds. Do I use this? Yes, if you're speed farming. Okay, I would most likely sacrifice this and go for Adrenaline Rush. This is very, very good when you are speed farming. Don't knock this, okay? Next is Photon Stacking. Whenever you hit 3 or more enemies with Voltea, all right, you'll gain the Photon Stacking effect for 10 seconds. Cooldown is 20 seconds. It increases your firearm attack and your beam rifle charging speed. Okay, this is exclusive to Voltea. I don't use it because I would rather not rely on this, and it's going to go away next season, okay? Explosive Forging is the same thing, but for Hammer and Anvil. Explosive Forging will last for 10 seconds, increasing shell capacity, which is pretty damn good for damage, by 13% and reducing skill resource consumption by 6%. Switching weapons or changing modes removes the Explosive Forging effect. Okay, cooldown is 20 seconds. Now, how do you trigger it? You have to switch the firing mode. So if you switch the firing mode and switch it again, it turns the effect off. So do be aware of that. Just switch it once, use the effect, then you can switch it back after 10 seconds. Okay? Again, I don't use it. Last is RK Boost. This is so good for Keelan. Whenever you hit 5 or more enemies with a skill, you'll gain RK Boost. RK Boost causes skill cooldowns to be lessened by 15.5%, skill speed and range increase modifier by 11% for 7 seconds, and the cooldown is 25 seconds. Okay, I like this one on Keelan or any of those farming characters that can spam and hit more than 5 enemies, but take note, you must hit more than 5 enemies for it to trigger. Alright, so do be aware of that. Last but not least is the best passive right now, Quantum Domain. This gives you passive increase of skill effect range by 0.8% per stack and skill power FYI of 0.6% per stack every time you use a skill. Since this is a skill power boost and not talking about modifier, this actually really pairs well with certain builds that rely on the Slayer set as well. This boosts the multiplier a little bit from that, especially when you're pairing it with the elemental multipliers as well. So it's a really, really good passive, but you do need to use your skills 15 times in total. Okay, now what skills do I normally use during the season? Okay, I would normally pick the attribute, like I've already mentioned, based on the weakness of the enemy that I'm fighting. I will usually take a recovery skill, one of these sorts. Why? It just keeps me in the game for longer. Heightened sensory cells is the best for farming. You can select whichever one else that you need for your specific build or whatever activity you're doing. Like for Colossus, you may want some more of the selective cellular stimulation. This is a good choice. Okay. Infernal Walker especially helpful. Okay, then for survival. For survival, I usually take Antibody Explosion, but for things like Infernal Walker and stuff, you might want Void Resistance. This can actually save your butt quite a bit. All right. The other thing is that seasonally speaking, if you don't care about Antibody Explosion, which I normally don't care about, and if you're not using RK Boost like on Keelan, you might want to actually take Adrenaline Rush. Adrenaline Rush is fantastic. Okay, for RK Boost, I tend to use this if I'm running, say, Bunny or Keelan, but actually Bunny also benefits from Adrenaline Rush. So if I really, really need to rush with Bunny, I take Adrenaline Rush. Keeps you in the game, keeps you moving faster, and although, yeah, sure, it's only up 50% of the time, but it's up 50% of the time, which is fantastic, all right? So don't hesitate to use this. That's what I use this season. You can make your own choices based on your needs and, you know, all that kind of stuff, but this is what I do. I hope this guide is helpful to you guys in deciding, you know, what you want to use, what you want to do this season. I know many of you were asking me about this because, oh, whoa, sorry about that. Don't know what that sound was. My apologies for that loud sound. Okay. Sorry, nothing is on in the background, I don't think. But yeah, no, you have my apologies for that because I'm not quite sure what happened there. Sorry. Anyway, let me just get back to the topic. Thank you very much, guys, for watching this video. I hope you guys will like, share, and subscribe, and of course, enjoy the content that I'm bringing you guys. If you got any questions about the Inversion Reinforcer or what I'm actually doing, feel free to ask anytime. I mean, as you can see, this is what I've got. You know, the highlighted green stuff is what I'm using, and this is what I have been using for ever, basically. So nothing different there. Now, last but not least, before we go, we always have to thank our top supporters this month. I know the whole members thing is a bit of a bust this month, but don't worry, I will get that sorted out eventually. December's top supporters, sorry, that's so small. Let me increase the size. December's top supporters. Current top tipper is CG Mayhem. Thank you so much for being a top tipper. Naste Gamer, Sir Tommy, thank you so much for being top tippers as well. Top super chatter is Lawbreaker. Okay. Top super chatter list includes George Tishon, Brad Music, D Russ, Joe D Wilkins, BVS Fang, Fisher. Thank you guys so much. Top channel membership gifters, Arcane Silver 300 with 20 gifted memberships. Okay. Our top membership gifter list includes Bendover, George Tishon, Track Hoodie, and D Russ. Thank you guys so much. All right, enjoy the video. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.